Week 10, books. Let's talk about who fell, who rose to the occasion, which predictions are looking good, which predictions are looking less good. So let's talk about our done chains first, because Untouchables, as we all know, is a team that I just never believed in, and there's a reason. And I hate to say it again because it's a team that got 124 points, so it's just Untouchables must be. I mean, they might not care at all, but they also must be at home being like, I know I'm better than this guy's making me out to be. And as I said, he could play spoiler sometimes with Captain Corrupt, but just not the year. This week he falls 149 to 124 to the Banditos, who just needed the win to go to 5-5, and you gotta owe all your thanks to Lamar Jackson getting you 44 points. A lot of other guys showed up for sure. You get a lot of high teen performances, but ultimately, when you had Chubb and Josh Jacobs on a bye, Njoku as well, everyone else really stepped up for you, and you did just enough to beat out Untouchables. Untouchables, listen, again, Chase Brown was a good find. Kyler Murray's having a good season. You finally get McCaffrey back. Everyone's like, okay, maybe, potentially, there's some magic here. And there still may be some magic here, but it's just not, unfortunately, going to make a difference at this point. So it pains me to say it, but the done chain is triple applied now. As we know, Untouchable is done. Okay, the next performance team that we kind of have a prediction about, and by the way, I did say Bandito's not done yet. I love this team when they were not doing well, so let's just call me out for that. Dust in the Wind. I said one and done. It's a one and done team. It's going to do just enough and be one and done. And I still feel that way. I mean, you're seeing the middle ground level of this team come out. Now falls to 5-5 after a 156 to 130 loss to El Professor. El Professor got 50 points out of Joe Burrow right away, so you kind of knew you were in good shape. Tyrone Tracy continues to deliver elite. I guess this is his first elite, but over 20 points this week. Calvin Ridley, 26 points. Marvin Harrison, 15 points. TJ Hawkinson, 15 points. And even though you're studs or potential guys that I would have been very high on in other situations, CD lost his quarterback, Brian Thomas lost his quarterback, they're not performing for you. You're getting it picked up by guys that weren't the most reliable for you. So very big week for El Professor to go to 5-5. Dust in the Wind also now goes to 5-5, and everyone's looking around saying, okay, what's next for these two teams? And it's just anything could happen. Two teams that could, I think, in the playoffs perform really well. I'm not talking about Dust in the Wind. Talking about Banditos as the first team. But I don't know. I totally believe that Banditos and El Professor have enough firepower to potentially push. Banditos is a team I like a little bit more. But going to the team that I really felt had the firepower to make a significant run, Team Chef Cesario gets another win, goes to 7-3, and these are one of the predictions I'm feeling really good about. It's 130, so it wasn't an insane week, but against Pain Train this week, anything would have been enough. You win 130 to 73. Brock Purdy gets you 33 points. A.J. Brown gets you 21 points. Then everyone else basically just does their job enough to keep you afloat. Again, against a team that you didn't need to go off against. Pain Train, some guys that normally perform a lot better or you'd expect more out of just not doing it. Jaden Daniels, Tyreek Hill, Malik Neighbors, Tank Dell while Nico was still missing time. Just a lot of really disappointing performances, including kicker and defense, and just the whole team didn't show up for you. Pain Train now find himself in a tough position. We'll talk about the standings right after this, but a tough position falling to 4-6 with a lot of really competitive 5-5 teams now ahead of him. Crucifier was a team that we said was really close if they could fix the RB situation. We talked last week about how they did fix that, and now you see Crucifier looking potentially driver's seat to put themselves into a playoff spot where they can make a run. Darnold had an awful game, but those running backs that we spoke about, James Conner and Kareem Hunt, total 40 points. And then the big news was obviously Jamar Chase getting you 63 points. That's what pushed you over the edge. And now you're looking at this team and saying, if Jamar Chase could really be wide receiver one like this, there's enough talent around him to make this a great team. Remember, Pickens is on the bench here. So I'm a believer in Crucifier. I always was after they got our RB. They did, and they will be a playoff team. Is my prediction. It's similar to Dust in the Wind, although I think Crucifier is a scarier team than Dust in the Wind. I think Banditos and Crucifier they're more on the same page. They're more similarly strength teams. I mean, we went Jared falling to 4-6. Again, this is one that you really wanted to have. I said I think you could make a run with Puka, and it's just not seeming like that's happening necessarily just yet. Puka gave you 17 points, but Aaron Jones got hurt. That's unlucky. But Stevenson, again, I talked about. I'm not a biggest Stevenson fan. Justin Jefferson gives you an off week. I am a big Jefferson fan. I think Devontae Adams will have good weeks, but even though he had 13 targets, only 6.6 points, super disappointing. Justin Tucker proving to be the worst kicker, by the way, which is really becoming significant. Nothing was going to do it this week, but when we went with Jared falling to 4-6, and 4-6, another team that needs to be a little bit nervous. And again, we'll talk about the standings, but 4-6, not where you want to be right now, given some of the teams right ahead of you. So yeah, then the last matchup is between El Granat and Team Electric. And this is another matchup where a win would put you in a driver's seat, and El Granat's got that. Avoid that 5-5 pool by going 6-4 now with a win 144-136 over Electric. This was the best game this week, and you owe your thanks to Bijan Robinson getting you 34 points and really proving to be the RB1 that made this team really stand out. You got Gibbs, Bijan, and Jonathan Taylor. It's hard for anyone to say El Granat isn't one of the contenders in this league. You're still looking for more help wide receiver-wise. I mean, Hutchinson was a bit of a stretch play, but given that you're going to be getting Nico Collins back and even JSN on bye if you need him, you pair that with Kupp and DeAndre Hopkins, and that's a pretty solid group to pair with an amazing running back group. You're going to want more out of Kirk Cousins, no doubt about that, but you're feeling better about Mark Andrews, and I feel that El Granat is just as good of a team as this Electric team that's now 7-3, and had to operate this week without Brock Bowers, without Amari Cooper, and with a very solid Eckler on the bench with Brian Robinson out, but that latter one won't matter as much when Brian Robinson comes in. Now really, actually relooking at this team, it's a good team, but I kind of just prefer El Granat's team to Electric. I'm starting to think El Granat is raising up those power rankings to be one of the contenders behind maybe Team Chef Cesario, and Team Electric might be third in the power rankings. So I don't know. Obviously, it's a 7 points separated them, but this is just one of those situations where a lot of teams could still win it. It's just untouchable as it's 2-8. Every other team's very mathematically in it in a league where 6 of 10 teams make it. The team in 9th place is only a game away from a playoff spot. So I have my predictions. I have some teams that I'm higher on and lower than. I think these top 3 teams, though, really separate themselves, with Crucifier and Banditos being right there. I think the standings are fairly accurate for where I would rank people. Honestly, I don't think that anyone's getting completely robbed or getting insanely lucky. And you could kind of see that in the points for. It really goes basically in order, almost, with scores. There's not really many teams with a ton of points that are way behind or vice versa. And that's very rare. I think in all the leagues I'm looking at, that's the only case where I could say people have records they kind of deserve. So that's good news, but a lot more football to be played. So let's see how next week goes and start making some playoff predictions. I kind of am doing playoff predictions. I didn't do the bracket predictions. Maybe I can next week, but I think you kind of know who I think is going to fall in the playoffs or not. I think it's going to be really tough to beat Chef Cesario, but I think teams like El Granat are making this a lot more interesting. So good luck everyone next week, and I'll talk to you soon.